Welcome to today's episode of Between Neens and Deens. My name is Nina, and I'm joined by my best friend, partner, and baby daddy, Dayon.
And together, we're a couple of 20-something-year-olds just trying to navigate this whole first-time parenting thing.
So we're laying it all out there and talking about all the things you wish your parents told you about love, sex, and happiness.
So today, we're talking about sex.
Specifically, we're going to talk about sex during pregnancy and after birth. So
Which has all been minimal.
Yeah, it's been minimal. Okay, we'll preface it with that. But I feel like going into this topic, or like us going into pregnancy, we had literally no idea like anything about whether or not you could have sex, whether or not it was safe, if you would even want to, all of the above. And I feel like we've learned quite a bit, I guess. Not really through doing it, but I guess just like in terms of what you can expect. And I think that our experience, it seems quite different actually from what I think most people experience. From the people that I have talked to, like other people that have been pregnant get quite horny, and that has not been my experience. I've heard that some people say that, you know, if you're having like a boy or a girl, then sometimes it might contribute to whether or not
old little myths and wives' tales.
Wives' tales. Yeah, but I mean, I think that usually when you have a boy that they say that you would get hornier, but that did not happen to me at all. Like, it wasn't even that I wasn't horny, it was like the idea of sex was just like not at all. Like, I didn't feel sexy, I didn't want to do it. Like, it was just like no part of it was attractive to me. And
growing up, like, I always assumed that like when you're pregnant, like your sex drive multiplies and like you want to have sex more often. Yeah,
is that like something that you've seen?
I think that I've just seen it in movies, and I think I've like heard like men joke around about it. But yeah, it's just like, because in movies it tends to be like where like when the woman is pregnant, she's so horny, right? And then like some guys are like, oh, I don't know if I'll do that, that's so weird because like there's a baby in there. But yeah, like that's what I always just assumed. I thought that like your sex drive would just multiply, and like
I think in a lot of women's cases like that does happen, but in my case that did not happen. No, I don't know.
It did the opposite, if anything.
It did the exact opposite, and I thought that it would change kind of like throughout the pregnancy, because obviously your hormones are changing a lot, and I thought that it would also change after giving birth. Actually, to be fair, after giving birth, I did feel hornier, but now obviously like going through like the C-section, it just all feels very different down there.
But would you say it's more or less before being pregnant?
I think that when my sex drive was the highest was, I mean, one, when I'm like single, but also, you know, when we first met. And I think that's also because at that period of time, I probably had more energy to kind of be present in that, or like care about that more. I don't really know how this is sounding right now, but like I feel like right now I just am so busy, and like I'm very much the type of person where when I'm having sex, like I need to be able to be in that moment. Like I can't be stressed about other things, I can't be anxious about other things. Like if my mind's otherwise preoccupied, like I can't be in it. And so I feel like when we first met, then like obviously we were having a lot more sex because that was my main focus, you know, like my focus was getting to know you and like exploring that. But
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but like now obviously we have a child too. Yeah, but like now obviously we have a child, and you know we have like work that we're working on, and I'm taking care of like healing and like trying to prioritize that. So I feel like there's so much of my brain that's focused elsewhere that I don't really have the time to be horny, which is like very weird, because like bear in mind, like I guess I should also preface this by saying like this is very different for me. Like I feel like throughout most of my life, and like even our relationship, and throughout most of my life, like I've been a very sexually active, or like had a very high sex drive, and this is very different for me. Like I feel like the last year has been very, very different for me in that regard. And it's just, I mean, I don't know, I guess it's like discovering a different part of myself that isn't tied to that. But do I miss it sometimes? Yes, because I feel like a lot of who I understood myself to be was like somebody with a very high sex drive, and like that sensuality and getting to know that part of yourself. But even recently, like I haven't like masturbated or anything. Like it's literally like no sexual energy kind of around me. And I don't know if that's something that will eventually pick back up or if that's something that will change.
I think it fluctuates, and I think right now it's just there's different focuses in your life right now. Cause yeah, in the beginning the sex drive was ridiculous. Like it was almost destructive to our everyday life. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I would be late for work and just like it just didn't matter. Like it was almost all the time, and I think that has to do with being single for a bit as well, and then finding someone that you really love and like want to be intimate with. Yeah, it was just more exciting, and like we were really getting to know each other. And I think now that we do know each other so well, and I mean, like, I'm not saying that
I never thought we would be here.
No, I know, and I feel that way too, but like I'm not saying that we don't have sex ever, or that there isn't like a lot of like horny urges and things like that. It definitely happens, but I think when you think of like what is most important for us to do right now, or like what we're working on, like that kind of holds more value, I feel, than like, I mean, not to say that
like, and I mean, that's the thing, is that a sad thing? Maybe, but like also this is also just what, like 1 year of our life, so I really don't know what next year is gonna look like, what next month is even gonna look like, you know, so
because it's not, because where I feel like comfortable in the relationship and in the fact that like, yes, we're not having as much sex, but I'm very aware that like we're still highly attracted to each other, and it's not about that, like sexual attraction. Like I know I would jump your bones any second. The thing is just like about, you know, like it's about timing.
It's like where you're gonna put your energy, you know, because we only have so much energy.
Well, I mean, we're getting
now.
old too, man. That shit's exhausting, bro. And it's hot, you know what I mean? It's so hot these days.
It's summer, who knows? It's a lot of things, But before I get into that, I should also say that despite what people may think about sex during pregnancy, it's actually good to have sex during pregnancy, because at least for the person that is pregnant, then you're more likely to have like all those like feel good hormones and stuff release, and it actually helps induce labor, not like early like preterm labor. I mean, I don't know if it does that I don't think it does. No. It shouldn't do that, but like when you are like within terms, so like I believe that's like 38 to 41, 42 weeks, then if you're having sex during that period of time, like, you can have sex well up all the way up until you're like laboring basically, but it like one, it helps produce those feel good hormones, and then it also helps with like getting your labor going. So all of it honestly is really good, and our midwives were telling us like, if you can have sex, like definitely do it, because that's really great for your body. But I was not feeling it in any way whatsoever. Like to me, I was just like not in a place where I felt sexy in any way, and I think my idea of sex and like the way in which we had sex was a lot more athletic, I feel like. So I didn't really want to have sex when I was pregnant and like kind of have that idea of sex be warped, you know, like I didn't want it to be in a place where I didn't feel sexy, and in a place where like I felt constricted in terms of movement, you know, like I could barely get up out of bed. So like for me to like lay there and enjoy sex was like really hard, and we tried a couple times, but
we did.
Me, it just wasn't. It wasn't something that I really enjoyed, because then I would be like, oh my god, like your pressure like on my stomach, or like I didn't like it.
And all that stuff. But like my sex drive was like going up, I think, at that time, and I really. You know, we really tried a few times, but I think another part of me as well, and like how I enjoy sex, is like I don't want it to be one-sided at all. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't want it to be like where it's like, I mean,
I don't think anybody should ever want to have sex like that. Where
some people are selfish lovers though. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like like I can't fully enjoy myself unless I know that like you're loving it. Do you know what I mean? And I think like, because, you know, it comes with you feeling uncomfortable and things like that. But I definitely, you know, just wanted to make you feel sexy, and I wanted to like do it, but hard. Sometimes it just
I didn't ever feel sexy.
I mean, we tried it a few times, and it was nice. It's just a different experience. I think.
It was very different. And so even now, now postpartum, like having to deal with like recovery and all those things, and my recovery was like, it still is happening. Like I'm 12 weeks out now, but it's still happening. Like I feel like when we have tried to have sex, I think we've tried 2 or 3 times now. And when we have tried, it's very, very tight, and I feel my body tensing up. And I've talked about this. She's a born-again virgin. Like I've talked about this on my Instagram, and it's just like when your body doesn't know whether or not it's like a baby coming out or like a penis going in, like it just, your body doesn't know, and so it tenses up the way that, you know, you would if you were giving birth. And so it's just something that I guess I've, like, you never have to think about that before, you know, or like I've never had to think about that
it's
before.
Like a subconscious trauma, right?
Yeah, like it was, like, because giving birth was very traumatic for me. It was 4 days. So in my brain, I'm like, hey, no, it's okay. Like, we want this to happen. But my body's like, no, 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 no. And it's just like, it's so used to tightening up. And so, yeah, it's just, it's a lot that I have to kind of breathe through and relax through, which is like so different work up to, for me. Yeah, it's just, it's really different because it's not something that I'm used to having to put very much thought into, and like telling my body to relax. And so that's been interesting. And yeah, I don't know, it's hard.
Yeah, you've been taking some pelvic floor, are those classes, or are they?
No, well, it's like a physio appointment. So like I would recommend, I do kind of wish that I went and saw, like, I mean, it was kind of hard with like COVID and like not being able to go to any appointments, but I do wish that I did see like a pelvic floor physio beforehand, just to kind of give me more awareness to like that part of my body, because I don't really think I thought about the fact that that's all going to change and shift. You know, like I didn't think about the fact that I would feel so disconnected to parts of my body because I'd never experienced that before. And even now, like with my abs, I have to think really hard about tightening them. And that's very weird because usually, you know, you just tighten your abs and you tighten your abs. Like all the layers of your muscles just all work together. And now it's like I'm tightening it and it's like layer by layer. I can feel it like, oh, okay, that's when I'm fully tightening. And it's just, yeah, it's just not something that I ever really had to think about, which obviously is like my privilege that I was very like fit and healthy and blah, blah, blah. And like, now I'm just retraining all of these different ways to like get back in touch with my body. And so if you can see a physio, I would definitely recommend it because you do lose touch with a lot of parts of your body. I feel like when you're giving birth and a lot of things shift, and especially even with sex, like before, like every now and then sometimes like sex would hurt, but now it's like every single time sex hurts, and it's like tender and it's tight and it's like there's so much tension in my body. So it just kind of, it sucks that that's the reality, but I think that it's important that you are prepared for that. That might not happen to you. Obviously, like I did have like a very traumatic birth experience, and I did try to push as well as get a C-section. So that's like two very traumatic things that are happening to my uterus.
And the scar is still healing.
Yeah, so. And the scar is like still very much healing. It's very hard still. It's like nowhere close to being like, you want to be able to pick up your scar. That's the goal. Like that you don't have any scar tissue and you can move it. And like literally like the way that you would pinch your skin and kind of pick up your skin, you want to do that to your scar. And I'm nowhere close to that. Like it's very hard and it dips inwards, if anything. And so, yeah, I think I just, like, need to be patient with my body, but it's definitely not something that I expected, like, going into birth, like, just, because, like, I feel like they talk about, oh, okay, like, you're gonna be with your midwives until you're, like, 6 weeks postpartum, and that's usually when you can, like, have sex again and start exercising again, and people just say that, so I think, like, my assumption was after 6 weeks, like, everything's just healed up, and you're, like, you know, good to go, but that has not been my experience at all. And
yeah, I think I saw you share that post where saying about how there's not enough aftercare, and I think like a doctor after giving birth basically just checks and says, okay, you're okay to have sex now, but don't think about like the mental aspect of it and like actually getting back into you know,
there's literally nothing. Like they say, okay, after 6 weeks, like you can most likely go back to exercising and having sex, but when it actually comes to postpartum care, there's so little out there. It's like you're expected to just heal magically. And I think that's why I had this warped idea of what my healing process would be like. Because I thought that it would just be like, oh, okay, my body just heals itself the same way it kind of just knew how to do pregnancy. Like it just knew how to make a baby. So I was like, my body will just know how to heal itself. And it does not at all just know how to heal itself. Like, I mean, yeah, your bleeding will kind of subside, and like the tenderness will go away. But in terms of like all of your organs like shifting together again, and your like muscles, especially your core, like coming back together, your ribs closing a little bit more, like all of that like takes more active work. And they don't ever give you exercises. They don't, like, you have to go see a physio in order to actually seek it. Yeah, you have to go out of your way to seek it. And the fact that, I mean, people care so much while you're pregnant and then just literally drop you off on the side of the road when you're postpartum is ridiculous. And like, I didn't realize that going into this, and I think that that's why I thought that postpartum would be a lot easier. But yeah, it's literally all they care about is you can exercise and you can have sex again. But like, to even get to those places, nobody prepares you or like tells you how to get there.
Yeah.
So now would be a good time to do a quick little plug for Care Of. If you guys don't know what Care Of is, it's basically a vitamins and supplement service that's delivered to you. And it comes in like this really cute little box. It's all organized, so like you just take a pack a day. The bag is compostable, which is great.
And they have like cute little quotes and like fun facts on each of the little packets, which is like really nice as well. And they made it super easy how you can just take a quiz online and then it like shows you what, it basically asks you like questions on what your goals are and kind of what you're looking for in like vitamins and like for daily life stuff, and then it recommends certain ones for you.
Yeah, so they'll ask you questions about like your sleep, your eating habits, kind of things that you specifically want to work on. So like for me, I obviously wrote that I'm breastfeeding, and so I'm still taking prenatal vitamins, which is like important even when you're postnatal. So that's what I'm taking. I have like a bunch of other stuff as well. And so I find that it's actually really great to supplement my diet and like get all the things that I need, because obviously like it's important for me to be at like tip-top health at this point.
And you bounce back quick. I don't know if it's from the vitamins, but
So if you want 50% off of your first Care Of order, go to takecareof.com and enter code BND50.
All right. So with that being said, I want to circle back to your pelvic floor exams, and that was the woman that you were FaceTiming, right?
Yeah.
When she suggested...
It was a little virtual Zoom chat with my physio.
Yeah, because those are the times now, right? But she suggested that you kind of warm up and start off with like playing with yourself and using like toys and whatever.
Yeah, she was saying that like she was basically just saying masturbate more and like spend time with myself, but like because I think we were diving into let's have sex again, but she was saying that my body and my mind will interpret obviously my touch and like myself as safer, and so that should help with like getting myself to relax more, because I think that we were trying to start with sex and we were finding that was just like my body was just not having it. And so honestly, since she said that, I haven't masturbated just because I haven't had time to,
which I mean shows just how much your sex drive is really in play right now.
It is really low.
It's like not the priority for you.
It's not the priority at all. And it's like, yeah, definitely before, like there would be times where I'm like, that's what I feel like doing, you know, like,
but
I'm just
who cares about Dayon, because Dayon doesn't matter. No, I'm kidding. I'm fine. I'm okay, guys. Don't worry about me.
Yeah, but I mean, you can self-love too.
Yeah,
you've been self-loving for the last year. Yeah. Yeah.
The last year, well, yeah. It's been a dry spell for me, for sure. It's just me, myself, and I.
Yeah. That's the thing, is that before, you know, like, if I'm, like, going to bed and I'm like, okay, you know, like, why not? Whereas now I'm like, I'm going to bed and I'm fucking sleeping because I'm tired. Yeah. You know, like, before I'd be like, hey, like, you know, let's just hang out a little bit. And, like, now I don't... Yeah, I think it's just that my priorities just aren't there right now. And I know that you have to take care of yourself, especially during this time. Like, obviously, it's going to be all about the baby, but, you know, you do have to look out for yourself, and I'm trying. Like, I'm trying really hard to, but it's just hard to do all of that, and, like, we also never really stopped working either. Yeah. I mean, we took, like, a bit of a hiatus, but I also enjoy working. Like, I think that, like, us kind of getting back into creating content again was really good for me to, like, feel normal again, so to me, that's normal. As I'm saying all of this, I'm like, does this just mean that I'm, like, fucked up? And, like, this is just my idea of, like, what, I don't know, normal or self-love is. But, yeah, I don't know.
I think it's important not to force it. That's the last thing you want to do. And I think I don't think there's any rules to it. I think it's just whatever is the most comfortable and what works for you. And,
I don't think we're both patient. Forever.
Like, yeah, no, 100%. And I think I'm definitely really patient with it. And I'm, like, I know that it's going to change, because I know that we're still attracted to each other, and I know that it's just I can see in the future where like it can change. Do you know what I mean? Because like it's just right now, like we're working on so many things and prioritizing so many things that it's not a necessity for us, and it's not something that we, necessarily
I feel like there
need
definitely
right now.
Yeah, like there's times in my life where I feel like I prioritize sex, which is important, and it's especially important in a relationship, not only to like maintaining our happiness, but also just in general. Like sex has obviously like been an important part of our lives in our relationship, and I think like that's just the most important thing, is that we have been able to communicate our way through this. Like there haven't really been times, like, I mean, obviously there will be times where you're like, okay, like, can we have sex or do something? And I'm just like, I don't want to. But I think even that is important, because I think that if we're not communicating that, then somebody's left in the dark, Then it's like, okay, like, are you not attracted to me? Or like, what can I do that's better? But really, like, for me, like, it's none of those things. It's just, that's not what I can focus on right now. Yeah. And I think that being able to understand each other through that has been huge, because it could have gone really bad and there could have been a lot of hurt feelings. But I think that, just the most important thing is being able to communicate and honestly being honest with ourselves, because similar to how when I was pregnant, I didn't really want to have sex because I didn't want my idea of sex to become like really stilted and like, are you okay? Like I didn't want that to be what I thought of. And even now it's like I don't want what I think of as sex to be like me not doing it if I'm not fully in it. Yeah. 100%. And like I never want that. So I think it's better for me to just take a break from it when I feel like I can't prioritize it.
Sometimes when you hear in relationships where they're like, oh, we haven't had sex in like a year. Mm-hmm. And then like sometimes that can be like, oh, that's concerning, or like, oh, they don't love each other, they don't have sex, or whatever kind of notions and ideas come with that. And I think the reason that I'm not concerned is because we are so happy in our relationship. And I think we're able to find joy in the other things that we're doing. And it's just kind of like not a priority to us right now. And the thing is, we do communicate about it. I think I have more of a sex drive right now than you do, but I'm able to communicate that with you. And we figure out compromises as well. And I'm never concerned, because I'm actually not at a place where I feel like it's an issue.
And you know what's the funniest thing is that I always thought, like, when people are like, yeah, I know the day that we conceived our child, I always thought that was ridiculous, because I'm like, how little sex are you having that you know exactly what day you conceive your child? And guess what? We know exactly what day we conceived our child.
It was our 2-year anniversary.
It was our 2-year anniversary. But so that's also the thing too, is that our sex drive was very up and down before I got pregnant anyways. And again, like I think that I've just learned about myself that when I'm otherwise preoccupied, or if I like am just not mentally there, like I just won't have sex. Like I'm not the kind of person that can like shut off the other parts of my brain and be like, hey, sex now, like I'm like it's constantly going.
And I'm not for it unless you're like so down.
Yeah. So basically, if I don't want to have sex, we're not having sex.
That's kind of, you're the ruling factor.
Yeah. But I guess maybe let's talk about how we were both raised in terms of like ideas of sex, and maybe how we either want to be more open or less open with how we would raise our child in like understanding sex.
Yeah. For me, my mother was really open about it. My dad was a little bit like, oh no, like don't talk about that, that's weird, or whatever. I don't know, I can't fully remember right now like what his reactions were, but I definitely do remember my mom like kind of, I don't know, she was just very comfortable and open with it. And I think when I did start having sex and she knew that, like Did
she talk to you about it beforehand? Or was it like once you started having sex then she was like more open with talking about it?
I think honestly she's always just been like open about it, but I think obviously when you're really young, it's not, I think the topic just never really arose, but I think when it did, it was a lot more comfortable. And I think, I was never scared to talk to my parents about sex. And I think it was always very open in regards to that. Like if I had sex with a girl and how I wouldn't say like how the experience was or whatever, but I think the conversations were just a lot more transparent. And it was more like talking to a friend, you know what I mean? It wasn't like, it wasn't awkward. I mean, there were times that felt awkward because you're like, maybe I shouldn't be telling my parents all of this, but the way they received it made me feel like it was normalized. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like it didn't feel like I said something wrong. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that's very different from my experience.
I'm sure it's different from a lot of people's experience.
Yeah. So like for me, I feel like my idea of sex, it wasn't even sex like at a young age, because obviously my parents didn't talk to me about that when I was like in elementary school, but I think it was just attraction in general. Like my parents, specifically my mom, always framed as like something negative. And I remember from a really young age, like I was very infatuated with people that were like in relationships, or like young couples that were like making out or whatever, from a really, really young age. And like my mom would see me like staring at people, like if they're just like kissing on the street and stuff. Like this is when I'm in elementary school, and I distinctly remembering her telling me like, stop staring at people, like why are you staring at them, and telling me that, you know, like it was bad to have a crush on somebody. And I remember like getting in trouble if I did have a crush on somebody, or like there was this kid that we both liked each other in elementary school, and we like held hands when we were at a water park, and like my mom was like there chaperoning or whatever, and she like made me feel really bad about it, or like shamed me. And so for me, like I always grew up with this idea of, you know, like liking somebody or attraction or any kind of physical anything was bad. And I think that was just my mom's way of trying to, like, she always wanted me to focus on school and academics rather than focusing on boys. But, you know, like when you tell somebody to just not do something, it makes them want to do it even more. So I became like very boy obsessed.
And like infatuated with
yeah, because she made it seem so dirty, so like bad, you know, but like I was always just so infatuated by it. And that's probably why I ended up like studying like sex and like all those things. I don't know, I just from a very young age was very in awe of it, but that was how it was framed for me. And when I went to middle school, they sent me to an all-girls school because they thought that it would help me focus more. And then when I was in high school, I remember like my first day of high school, my mom told me to like not get pregnant and like drop out, which was like so out of pocket, because I was like, what? Like, I don't even, like, what about me tells you that I'm gonna do that? Or that like that's a plan that I have for myself, or that I'm in any way going to have sex anytime soon. Like none, like no part of me was giving her that. So I was like, what do you
think it was personal, or was it just like maybe something she saw like
no,
on TV,
she just, or like, I mean, everything that they warned me about is everything they see on TV, you know. And it's, to be fair, like they were raising an American girl and they never grew up in this American society, so like I'm sure that everything that they saw, like, I mean, my dad had seen like American Pie and like stuff like that, you know, like, so they're not
that movie, oh my goodness,
yeah, they're not strangers to like, I don't know, the idea of like sexuality in an American context. Yeah. And so
I just want to interrupt because we're talking about American Pie. That
we're not really talking about American Pie.
No, but since you mentioned it, sorry, but like since you mentioned it, like those are the type of movies that do kind of like, we're like the introduction of like sexuality to like young kids.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, yeah, like now when you watch it, it's so stupid. It's like it's so dumb. But like, yeah, growing up like that definitely did like shape like sex before you even realize like, oh my god, there's porno and you can like actually watch porn. Do you know what I mean? But like, yeah, like watching that was like, it was like you get a little bit of porn. You know what I mean? And then like a lot of entertainment with it as well. But
I think that's what my parents were afraid of. And so even like for me to have a boyfriend, they were always saying that I couldn't have one until I went to college. And it like all very quickly kind of is, all of this is very, there's like so much more I could say about it, because like I obviously like went to high school and I would like hook up with guys, and by hook up I mean like make out with guys. Like I never really, like, hook up didn't mean sex at our school. And so I would like I would go home and write in my journal that I like hooked up with this guy, and to my parents, hook up means sex. So then my parents read my journal and then were so scared that I was like having sex with all these random people. And one of them I wrote that I like hooked up with this kid at the bus station, so they thought I had sex with him at the bus station.
Oh shit.
And I came home and my mom was fucking bawling. She was like crying, and they thought I was like some sex addict, and like it was so bad. But like that kind of tells,
I mean, like your daughter having outdoor sex, it's like maybe we should have a conversation.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that like they never really had a conversation about sex. They just, everything they did framed sex and sexuality in such a negative way. Yeah, in such a negative way that like I didn't really have any other context for it. And like I didn't think that there was anything wrong with what I was doing by like hooking up with like different people that I was like attracted to or whatever. Like I didn't see that as wrong. And I just kind of knew from a young age that, like, the way that my parents framed it wasn't something that I really believed in. And anyways, so, like, that was kind of how I grew up, and that's very different from what I want Blue to experience, or any potential children that we would have in the future, because I feel like in so many ways, like, I wasn't allowed to tell my mom or my dad really, like, anything that I was experiencing. And then the weirdest part is that I grew up, went to college, and then my mom all of a sudden became the cool aunt, and then would talk to all my cousins about, like, their boyfriends and, like, all these things, because my cousins couldn't talk to their own parents. So then my mom became the cool parent that they would talk to about it.
But do you feel like that's something that just comes with like age? Because, like, obviously they don't want you to be exposed to it at a super young age.
That's the thing, though, is that, like, my whole entire life they were like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, and then all of a sudden they were cool with it. But I didn't get the memo, because I'm like, you told me my whole life that even holding hands with a boy was wrong. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know, I think, like, once I was, like, masturbating at home, like, back in San Francisco, like, in my parents' house when I was living there for a little bit. And then I think my mom was, like, low-key trying to, like, tell me that she, like, heard the vibrator or something, but, like, in a cool way, where she was trying to, like, get me to open up with her, and I was, like, not having it at all whatsoever. I was, like, shut that conversation down.
Yeah.
So I think, like, even now, like, my mom tries to, because I think they're more open about it, but they were only wanting to be open about it once I was an adult. But you can't just flip the switch like that if you raised me a certain way to not want to have those conversations with you. So yeah, I think for me, the main thing is maybe just wanting to have that conversation earlier, and, like, understanding that you can talk to me about these things. Like, I'm not going to try to be, like, cool mom where I'm, like, yes to everything and, like, want to hear all your adventures, but I want you to be able to feel like it's a safe space. Yeah. That if you do have any questions, or, you know, if you do feel uncomfortable about a situation, that I would be there as somebody that you can talk to, which I didn't feel like I really had until my parents expected it of me, but I was like, I'm not really down to talk to you about that kind of stuff.
I think I want that balance.
It's hard, though. It's a hard balance to find, I think.
Definitely, because, like, I mean, with your child, like, you want to be someone that they can talk to, and I think you want to be their friend as well, but, like, you got to understand that you're also the parent, because you don't want them to just, like, think, oh yeah, there's no rules and I'm gonna have unprotected sex and kind of, like, just do whatever I want because my parents don't care. It's more about, like,
well, yeah, no, you should definitely teach them safe sex.
100%. And I think, yeah, that's like my mom would, that's, like, the thing that I know the most is anytime that I was hanging out with a girl, she's always like, did you use a condom? And I'm like, I didn't even have sex with her, chill. You know what I mean? Like, they always just expected that it was sex and that I should always wear a condom. And that was, like, a topic, making sure that it's safe sex at least, right?
I think that's the thing too, is, like, I think I talked to my mom about wanting to get on birth control, but I, like, tried to do it in a way where I was like, yeah, like, no, like, it'll just help me grow boobs, so that's why I want to get birth control. And she, like, kind of just saw right through it. But, like, they didn't want me to be on birth control, which is, like, so weird to me, because by the time that I was, you know, more mature and I, like, had a boyfriend and I was like, hey, this is, like, I feel like something that I should do because it is safe and it is responsible, and, like, just in case something happens, you know, like, wouldn't you be glad that I was on birth control? And to them, they were like, oh, no, because I think to them it was like, if you're on birth control, then you're more likely to have sex, and you're more likely to be reckless. But I'm like, wouldn't you rather me be a responsible adult, though? Yeah. Like, it was just, it was very weird, because I was like, I'm trying to do the right thing, but you just don't want me to, and you think that... I think it was just they thought the abstinence would...
In the same time, I think, like, that could be a generational thing, because I think even my mother didn't really understand birth control, because...
It was very, like, natural. Don't mess with your body's, like, hormones and...
Well, I think also with I think the way my mom viewed it, I don't know, I can't really say because I'm not her, but I do remember certain situations where I would be like, oh, yeah, no, it's fine, like... Because she, like I said, she always asked me if I wore a condom, and I was very honest with her, and I think... With one of my girlfriends, I was like, no, she's, like, on birth control. And she's like, oh, I don't know, you should still wear a condom. Do you know what I mean?
Because,
like,
she doesn't think it's effective?
I don't know if she just doesn't... Yeah, I don't know if she just doesn't believe in its effectiveness. Or maybe it could be, like, STI-related concern. Or she just really believes in condoms and nothing else. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah, it was interesting. Like, I don't know if, like, it's just a generational thing, because maybe birth control is... something that's quite foreign to them because it wasn't available to them.
I know that much. For my mom, it was because she didn't... And fair, I was in high school, and I was very young, But, like, for her, she just didn't want me to, like, mess with my body's, like, natural, like, hormones. And, like, she just didn't want me to mess with anything, really. Which I was like, okay, like, I get that. And, you know, birth control really does, like, take you on a roller coaster. But at the same time, I was like, I'm trying to do the right responsible thing. Yeah. So just let me do the right responsible thing. But, yeah.
But I can understand it. I think, like, when a girl does... Normally, I think the perception is that if a girl does choose to go on birth control, it's that she's ready to have more regular sex, right?
I think that's the perception, but I think there's a lot of reasons why people go on birth control. But regardless, like
get bigger
just
boobs.
Because, yeah, okay, that was that was like not a real reason, but I think that is also very fucked up to think, because just because a girl goes on birth control doesn't mean that it's like, yes, I'm ready to have sex. It's, if I decide that I'm ready to have sex, then I will be protected. Yeah. You know? And, like, they portray that idea in movies and TV shows so much that it's, like, only, like, slutty girls go on birth control. You know? But it's, like, I take issue with just slut-shaming in general. Yeah. But, like, as a whole, like, I think that it's wise to be on birth control if you think there's a possibility that you might become sexually active at some point in the near future.
Or if the condom breaks, too.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot of... and there's a lot of reasons.
And then I have to go get Plan B.
Yeah.
Which is expensive if you're not going to the youth clinic.
So that's the thing, is that my parents didn't know that I went on birth control, and I knew that I wanted to, because it was the right responsible thing to do. So I went to the free clinic, and I just got free birth control, and I didn't need their permission or anything like that. I mean, if my parents ever listen to this, I'm sorry, but I would basically just make up excuses, go after school, and it was the right responsible thing to do. You know, like, I wasn't gonna put myself at risk like that. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons why people go on birth control. A lot of people just go on because they want to regulate their hormones. It helps with acne. Like, there's a lot of different reasons.
Are you a salesman now?
No, but it's like, I think it's important that people know that, you know, that it's like, just because you're on birth control doesn't mean that you, A, want to have sex, or B, that it's just to prevent you from being pregnant. Like, there are a lot of reasons why people do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's, like, a huge conversation, like, in the States right now, because people don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just, like, so much negative stigma that's attached to it. But, so yeah, I mean, what started as a conversation about sex during pregnancy and post-pregnancy ended up being about high school and sex.
Yeah.
Maybe next time we'll talk about...
Sex.
I know that some people want us to talk about our first time. I don't really know. I feel like most of our listeners are probably our age. So I don't know how many of you guys would be curious to know about that. But yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll talk about that one day. Until then, you can follow us at Neens Deens. I am at Your Girl Neens.
And I'm Dayon's Day Off.
And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.